listeners, fight fans, damas y caballeros. Welcome to the No Decision podcast. It is I, Wes Ibarra, right alongside me, Jared Joy Villapando. We're going to go through the Canelo versus Saunders unification super middleweight fight. What's next for Canelo? The dark case of Felix Verdejo and upcoming fights for the rest of the month. We will take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to start with Canelo versus Saunders. trainers, fight fans. Welcome back to the No Decision Podcast. We are now going to talk about who we think would be next for Canelo. I'll start off this discussion, Joy. I think it's a very easy call here. And, a lot of hints were dropped about it last night. I think the next guy Canelo should face is the last man standing, and that is Caleb Sweet Hands Plant, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of, I believe he's from Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, man, I would love to see that matchup. And there's going to be a lot of storylines going on there. USA versus Mexico, the dancer versus the rusher, power versus finesse, all of that. And big prize, big stadium, big money, big everything. And man, it's gonna be it'll be quite the fight if it could be signed very, very soon. I know Eddie Hearn's got a lot of work to do, and Al Heyman.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Wes. There's only one guy left. Canelo has always spoken about this journey of being the undisputed champion at 168, the first Mexican to ever be undisputed champion, I think, for any weight class. Let alone the middleweight class. And so this is gonna be very interesting. I do think that the fight will be made. I think it's just inevitable. And I don't think Caleb Plant is running from anything. I think it was just always been about the plan that Canelo was gonna grab the WBC, WBO first, and the Ring magazine first, and then go after the IBF. And yeah, it's interesting because the IBF, in the hierarchy, in the pyramid of titles, the IBF is actually seen as the lowest title of all those major titles. But I mean, yeah, it's still it still has a lot of credibility on it, and Caleb Plant definitely earned that title. But yeah, it's a little bit worrying, right? Caleb Plant has a lot going against him if this fight were to make sense, or if this fight were to go through. Yeah, it's terrifying, but like you said, right? His nickname is Sweet Hands. I think he has enough to pull the upset. You just gotta fight flawlessly. You gotta make sure no stone is unturned. You gotta make sure you know you could take the biggest punch, but not also take too much of the biggest punches from Canelo. And yeah, let me ask you this, Wes. If you're any of the middleweights that Canelo has already fought, and obviously you're in the middleweight division because you want to take the middleweight titles, where do you go from here? Right? If you're Billy Joe Saunders, I mean, you can't really ask for a rematch against Canelo, but unfortunately, if Canelo grabs all the titles, there's only one guy to fight.
Yeah, and I took a second to really think about that.
Right.
And maybe, yeah, I guess you can argue that um, running it back with Billy Joe just to see how the fight would have looked extended. But at the same time, you can also argue that the same thing could have happened anyway
Yeah.
because Canelo's that much better.
Yeah.
For me, say hypothetically Canelo beats Caleb Plant. I think you just I think you just clean up the rest of the class. So
Oh,
Benavides,
nice.
Demetrius Andrade, just
Eubank.
to just to well, I don't know about Eubank,
Well,
but
Eubank was calling out Canelo last night too, so it was interesting.
I mean, when you're coming off a win, you think you can beat anyone.
Right.
But for me, it's like just clean up the other big names in that division.
Yeah. Well,
So that way you really are the last person on the hill. And the same can be said for Caleb Plant. So say Caleb Plant beat Canelo, I would say go after
right.
Benavides, go after Andre, go after uh Billy Joe Saunders.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree, and that's the thing, right? That was kind of the point that I was making. Was that this puts a massive target in Canelo's back, right? If he's gonna hold all four titles at once, I mean, there's mandatory fights. There's challengers. There's people that's gonna call you out. You're gonna have to. I mean, he wants to fight 6 times a year. His schedule is gonna be pretty full. Now, I've been saying this, right? Like it's different when you're boxing at a professional rate. Of course, at an amateur rate, you could fight maybe 3 times every 6 months, right? That's pretty reasonable um in the amateur class, but in professional, I mean, I can only imagine one of these guys is gonna catch up to Canelo, and Canelo, he is in his 30s, right? And I'm not saying he's old or anything, but soon he's gonna be in the wrong side of 30. And if he's still holding at least like, I'm pretty sure he's still gonna hold all four. Would that prompt other fighters from different weight classes to just come up and challenge this guy?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But then again, I also wouldn't be surprised to see Canelo try and go up to the
Hmm.
170s and
Interesting.
try and beat people up there
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A
because
cruiserweight. I mean, cruiserweight, light heavyweight.
he's not a you know Canelo's not a robot.
Yeah,
Canelo's a human, and what do humans want when they find success? They want more.
right. I was about to say, I was like, there could be a chance that as soon as he gets the IBF, he's actually gonna vacate all the titles because at that point, I mean, what's the point of fighting guys again, right? After he beats him up. Uh, I think it makes a little bit more sense to go back down to Walter. That way, I think it's a little bit easier on him. He doesn't have to put a little bit more weight. Of course, he's going to lose probably a little bit of his power, but I think Canelo is already used to it, going up and down. I think also there's a lot of money in that welterweight
To
division.
welter or junior middleweight 154?
Well,
Because
that's the
I
thing,
can't see
right?
Canelo fighting at 147.
Well, that's the
No.
thing, right? Like, how many titles are there in the junior middleweight that you think would extend his legacy?
Well, 154, you have Charlo,
You have Charlo, you
or
have
both
Triple
of
G,
them.
right?
Yeah, you have
If
Triple G.
right, I mean, I don't know. For me, I think there's a little bit more in the welterweight division, especially with a lot of the talents coming in. Now, obviously, some of these welterweights will probably grow to a middleweight, size. But yeah, I don't know. I personally think that as soon as he gets Caleb Plant's IBF, if he does win, I think he's gonna vacate a lot all of the titles because then at that point there's no point, you know.
I'd watch the verbiage there. I don't want to say as soon.
Oh, okay. So he might defend some of his titles. He might take some of those defenses and like you said, fight David
No,
Benavidez.
no. What I mean by as soon as, like you said, as soon as he takes Plants. Well, there's no guarantee he can beat Caleb Plant.
Oh well, no, no, no. I'm yeah, absolutely.
I'd
Like
watch that if I were you.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
That's what
Like
I'm telling you right now.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said right before we had a break, I'm pulling for Caleb Plant because I mean it's a little bit yeah, it's a little bit more of a Cinderella story to come true. But I mean, just saying, if Canelo does take the IBF, I think I think he's gonna drop it all. Like you said, he might go up in weight. For me, I think he should go down to either junior middleweight or go back to welter. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Absolutely. And that's much better.
Yeah.
If is much better than uh when he. So appreciate that. Appreciate that. But we're gonna leave it there. So we got 2-0 on the Caleb Plant. hopefully that fight gets done. Like I said, Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn have a lot of work to do. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the dark and twisted case of Felix Verdejo. Fans, welcome back to the No Decision podcast. We're going to now talk about the most recent conviction of Felix Verdejo. So, for those who don't know, Felix Verdejo is a fighter coming out of Puerto Rico, was at one point a up and coming prospect from the country, and has had a pretty decent career, 29 wins and 2 losses. And he most recently came off a defeat to uh, Masayoshi Nakatani in the top ranked bubble via knockout. And of course, earlier this month, he was indicted on a murder case of his girlfriend and a intentional murder of an unborn child. Due to the reports, this was a move in which he set up a kidnapping of his then pregnant girlfriend to try and I guess that was his way of trying to undo the unexpected pregnancy. The body of the woman was found in a river or a body of water, and with the unborn child. And Felix Verdejo went from person of interest to turning himself in. And man, it's despicable. I don't like it. And, to me, things like this, that just goes to show that he now belongs in the wasted talent pile. And I don't know what his motive was. Maybe, okay, I understand, people don't expect to have families, but that's not the way to deal with them. And I kind of wish really nothing but the worst for this guy. I used to enjoy watching him when he was on the come up. I enjoyed watching his last fight against Nakatani. But now, much like everybody else, I think my view of him is no longer the same. And, he deserves to face as many repercussions as he can for killing his partner and unborn child.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I can only hope that justice will be served for his girlfriend and unborn child, and yeah, unfortunately, it happened to one of the talents in the sport that we love, and you know, like you said, I don't know what his motives were. At this point, I really don't want to know. Because when you make these such actions, really, I mean, what's the point? For me, what's the point of learning this man's motivation? But yeah, it's a sad day. And yeah, I hope that if it does come down to it, I hope he gets what he deserves. There's talks of death penalties. Of course, this happened in Puerto Rico, so I'm not really familiar with the Puerto Rican government's law or how they enforce the law over there. But in the recent days, I've heard that the Puerto Rican government doesn't really do a lot in light of domestic violence against women. But I think this is an incredible. I mean, this is the big opportunity, right? To kind of just, I wouldn't say like make the right decision here, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to talk about because it's such a sensitive topic of what caused this and what fighters go through. Perhaps this is, a lot of people will link this to boxing and what it does to a human. Um, but they're like I said, a lot of the times people will reflect on the things that they've learned either through their past or through their surroundings or their environment. And yeah, I just hope justice is served for his girlfriend and his unborn child.
Sure. It's nothing but condolences to the Rodriguez family. Rest in peace to Keisha Rodriguez. And it's a very, very horrific event. I wish we didn't have to really cover it. I don't have any fun covering this in our show tonight, but of course, it shakes up the boxing landscape when a fighter of the caliber and recognition of Felix Verdejo, does occur in such a atrocity.
Right.
But yes, condolences and rest in peace to Keisha Rodriguez. We're going to take another time out. When we come back, we're going to talk about the upcoming fights for the rest of May and our closing statements for tonight. We'll be right back. Trainers Fight fans, welcome back to the No Decision podcast. We're in the home stretch here, just talking about the upcoming fights for the month of May. And next week, 2 weeks from now, I'm sorry, on the 22nd, we have the junior welterweight unification bout over ESPN Top Rank, Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez Jr. This seems to be a good fight. Always have a thing for watching smaller weight classes go at it and more belts on the line. Josh Taylor from the UK, Jose Ramirez, Mexican American. And I feel like it's gonna be an all-out war. I wonder if it's gonna be one of those fights where the UK guys come here and they seem to get blown the F up.
Yeah. I mean, two undefeated fighters, right? Two undefeated prospects, like what we had last night. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting, right? Usually when two prospects meet one another and, they're undefeated, one's career, the one who wins, usually his career is going to skyrocket, and, usually the one who loses will, unfortunately, kind of stay or stagnate within the division. Hopefully that's not the case for either one of these guys. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Absolutely. So once again, May 22nd, 2021, I believe it's in the Top Rank bubble. It is Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez Jr. Junior welterweight, Jose Ramirez. I'm sorry, not Jose Ramirez Jr. Jose Ramirez Junior welterweight unification bout on 22nd of May over ESPN Plus. This one I'm really excited for, Joy. May 29th over the Zone, and I believe this fight is going to Vegas. Devin Haney, Jorge Linares. I've been watching Linares since he was a sparring partner for Manny Pacquiao. Devin Haney, I've been quite high on, and Eddie Hearn is lucky to have him in his stable. Haney's finally going to get one of those big tests. Yeah. And by those tests, I mean the kid's fighting someone that is pretty goddamn dangerous.
Yep.
In the case of Jorge Linares. And, I think Haney, despite him being seen as a very patient, very tactical, very Floyd-esque fighter, I think he's going to have his hands full against Jorge Linares. Not saying he's going to lose, but it's going to be quite the test that we've all been waiting for people like him and Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Devin Haney is definitely one of the biggest up-and-coming names in the sport of boxing. And he's going up against Jorge Linares, right? Which I think Linares is the biggest lightweight, right? Currently in the division. people forget. I mean, Linares is pretty much a veteran of the game, but not only that, he was once a champion. He was once the star of the lightweight division. Unfortunately, Lomachenko stepped in, and let's not forget, this is the guy that dropped Lomachenko once, and so yeah, he definitely carries a lot of power, and he is very tactical. Um, he's more of an inside fighter, right? He wants to get in there. If Haney can just control the distance, I think he'll be okay. But I think he will struggle a little bit, right? And so, Devin Haney is not like the best defensive fighter. He doesn't bring like not anything new to the defensive game, but he does have a lot of arsenal. He does have a lot of power in his punches. Pretty much, drop Gamboa, right? And so, yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I think there's an interesting one. Another one of the biggest tests that the young guns have to prove themselves in.
Absolutely. We are very, very blessed this May. So once again, May 29th, Devin Haney, Jorge Linares, Las Vegas, Nevada, over DAZN. And with that, that is the end of our show. We appreciate you all joining us tonight, and I hope you appreciated being around and hearing what we had to say about the boxing landscape. If you want to hear more from us, check out the Run It Back podcast, where we discuss the current landscape of Formula One. This week, we talk about the Spanish Grand Prix and how another masterclass from probably, if not, say, the greatest Formula One athlete, probably one of the greatest athletes in sport ever, Lewis Hamilton, doing a career-defining victory over his rival Max Verstappen. But with that, we're closed now. You don't have to go home. You can't stay here. If anything, we are thankful for you spending your Mother's Day with us. Happy Mother's Day to all the mother figures around the world. Let me say that on this lovely May 9th evening. But for what it's worth, you can always come back next week and we'll have a fresh set of rounds for you. But until then, I'm Wes Ibarra. He's Joy Villapando. Have a great night.